Royal Enfield sells 11 bikes in America right now. You should ignore most of them. Same engine, same frame, different paint. That's not a lineup, that's a marketing trick. I narrowed it down to just 5 that are actually worth your money in 2026. And the last one on this list, it's the one Royal Enfield doesn't want you comparing to a Harley. Let's go. Royal Enfield INT 650. Here's a question nobody at the dealership wants you to ask. Why does this bike exist right next to the Continental GT 650 when they share the same engine, the same frame, and nearly the same price? The answer is actually what makes the INT 650 worth buying over almost everything else in the lineup. The Continental GT is a cafe racer, clip-on bars, aggressive lean, looks incredible parked outside a coffee shop. But most riders aren't carving canyons every weekend. They're commuting, they're running errands, they're riding to dinner, and the INT 650 was built for exactly that kind of reality. Upright riding position, wider handlebars, a seat that doesn't punish you after 30 minutes. Under that classic silhouette sits a 648cc air oil-cooled parallel twin, pushing 47 horsepower and 38.6 pound-feet of torque. Those numbers aren't going to blow anyone's mind on paper, but the way this engine delivers power is almost deceptively smooth. There's no harshness, no vibration buzzing through the bars at highway speed. It pulls cleanly from 2000 RPM all the way through the mid-range. And that's where you live on a bike like this. Starting at $6,349, the INT 650 undercuts practically every comparable middleweight on the market. A Triumph Speed Twin 400 starts higher and gives you a smaller engine. A Kawasaki Z650 costs more and looks like every other naked bike in the parking lot. The INT gives you something those bikes can't: genuine character without a premium price tag. Dual-channel ABS is standard. You get a 6-speed gearbox with a slip-assist clutch. The twin-pod analog gauges with the small tripper navigation screen keep things clean and functional. And honestly, the fit and finish on the 2026 models has improved noticeably. The paint quality, the welds, even the feel of the switchgear. Royal Enfield is quietly closing the gap with bikes that cost twice as much. If you want one motorcycle that does everything reasonably well without asking you to specialize, the INT 650 is the answer. It's not the flashiest pick on this list, but it might be the smartest. Royal Enfield Himalayan 450. Now forget everything I just said about smooth highway cruising and retro charm. The Himalayan 450 is a completely different animal, and honestly, it's the bike that shocked me the most this year. For years, the old Himalayan 411 had a reputation: capable but crude, reliable enough but never quite refined. Riders tolerated its quirks because nothing else at that price could actually handle serious off-road terrain. Well, Royal Enfield didn't just update the Himalayan, they rebuilt it from scratch. The new Sherpa 450 engine is a liquid-cooled 452cc single-cylinder, making 40 horsepower at 8,000 revolutions per minute and 29.5 pound-feet of torque at 5,500 revolutions per minute. That might sound modest until you realize the old bike made 24 horsepower. That's a 67% jump. And it's not just more power, it's better power. The fueling is cleaner, the throttle response is sharper, and the engine doesn't feel like it's working hard at highway speed anymore. But the chassis is where the real story lives. Showa inverted forks up front with 7.9 inches of travel. A linkage-type rear shock also with 7.9 inches. A 21-inch front wheel and a 17-inch rear. The exact combination serious adventure bikes use. This isn't a dual sport pretending to be an ADV. It's an actual adventure motorcycle that happens to cost $5,999. And here's what puts it over the edge. This is the first Royal Enfield with riding modes, Eco and Performance. A full-color TFT display with Bluetooth navigation, all LED lighting, and a USB-C port. You get dual-channel ABS, with rear wheel disable for off-road use. The seat height adjusts between 32.5 and 33.3 inches, and there's even a low seat option that drops it further. Try finding another adventure bike under $6,000 with those specs. The KTM 390 Adventure gets close in capability but costs more. The Honda CRF 300L Rally is cheaper but far less refined for highway touring. The Himalayan 450 sits in this perfect gap where it's cheap enough to actually buy and capable enough to actually take anywhere. That combination barely exists in motorcycling. Royal Enfield Bear 650. This one is going to be divisive, and that's exactly why it works. The Bear 650 is Royal Enfield's Scrambler, and if you look at it next to the INT 650 or the Shotgun 650, your first thought might be, why do I need this when it shares the same 648cc twin? Fair question, but spend 5 minutes with the Bear, and the answer becomes obvious. The Bear isn't about going faster, it's about going places the other 650s can't, or shouldn't. Those 19-inch front and 17-inch rear wire spoke wheels wrapped in dual-purpose rubber completely changed the personality of that parallel twin platform. You can actually ride this thing on gravel roads, packed dirt, even mild trails without feeling like you're about to destroy a bike that wasn't designed for it. Royal Enfield priced this at $6,849, and that buys you the same 47 horsepower, 38.6 pound-feet engine, but wrapped in a package that's noticeably more upright, more raw, and more willing to get dirty. The Scrambler seat sits you higher and lets you move around. The flat handlebar gives leverage for standing on the pegs, and the number board on the side isn't just for looks, it signals what this bike wants to do. Here's the thing most people miss about the Bear though. It's not really competing with the Himalayan 450 for off-road credibility. The Himalayan will always be the better dirt bike. The Bear is for the rider who spends 80% of their time on pavement, but wants the other 20% to feel like an adventure, not a liability. It's a weekend bike that also happens to be a great weekday bike. It gets the tripper navigation from the Himalayan, standard dual-channel ABS, and comes in 5 colour options including petrol green and golden shadow, 2 of the best paint jobs in the entire Royal Enfield catalogue. The suspension is basic compared to the Himalayan's Showa setup, but it's more than adequate for the mixed riding the Bear is designed for. If you've been eyeing the Ducati Scrambler or the Triumph Scrambler 400X and choking on the price, the Bear is your exit ramp. Same spirit, fraction of the cost. Royal Enfield Super Meteor 650. I almost didn't include a cruiser on this list. The cruiser segment in America is dominated by Harley Davidson and Indian, and most people shopping for a cruiser don't even consider Royal Enfield. That's exactly why the Super Meteor 650 belongs here, because the riders sleeping on this bike are making a mistake. Let's start with the elephant in the room, price. The Super Meteor 650 starts at $6,999, a base. Harley Davidson Sportster S starts at over $16,000. The Indian Scout starts at around $12,000. You could buy 2 Super Meteors for the price of 1 Scout and still have money left for gear. And no, this isn't some flimsy budget bike that falls apart after 10,000 miles. Royal Enfield backs it with a 3-year unlimited mile warranty. The 648cc parallel twin in this chassis has been tuned for cruising. Low-end torque comes on strong and early, pulling smoothly from just above idle. The riding position is perfect for long hauls, a low-slung wide seat and forward controls that let you stretch out. The teardrop fuel tank holds 15.7 litres, which translates to genuine range between fuel stops, and the steel tube cradle frame gives this bike a planted, confident feel at highway speeds that lighter cruisers simply can't match. What really separates the Super Meteor from cheap cruiser alternatives is how complete it feels. You get a full-colour TFT display with Google-based navigation, a slipper clutch, dual-channel ABS, alloy wheels with tubeless tyres. These aren't add-ons you're paying extra for, They come standard on a bike that costs less than most people's monthly car payment stretched over a year. The 2026 model carries over mechanically with some new color options. But honestly, this platform didn't need changes. It was already the best value proposition in the American cruiser market. The only real drawback is dealer availability. Royal Enfield's US network is growing fast, but still can't match the saturation of Harley or Indian dealers. If there's one near you, go sit on this bike. That's all it takes. Royal Enfield Shotgun 650. I saved this one for last because the Shotgun 650 is the bike that tells you exactly where Royal Enfield is headed, and that direction is interesting. Every other 650 in the lineup leans into nostalgia. The INT looks like a British bike from the 1960s. The Super Meteor channels classic American cruiser DNA. Even the Bear winks at vintage Scramblers. The Shotgun doesn't do any of that. It's angular where the others are round. It's aggressive when they're relaxed. And it's polarizing in a way that none of the other Royal Enfields are. Starting at $6,899, the Shotgun shares the same 648cc parallel twin, making 47 horsepower and 38.6 pound-feet of torque. Same proven engine, same reliability track record, but the chassis and geometry are tuned differently. Showa big piston forks up front with twin-tube rear shocks featuring 5-step adjustable preload, alloy wheels with tubeless tyres. The whole package feels tighter, more responsive, more eager to change direction than the INT or the Super Meteor. But here's the real argument for the Shotgun. This is the Royal Enfield you buy when you're not a Royal Enfield person. You don't care about heritage. You don't want a cafe racer or a cruiser or a retro standard. You want a modern-looking motorcycle that rides well, doesn't cost a fortune, and doesn't look like everything else on the road. The Shotgun delivers on every single one of those points. The digi-analog instrument cluster with tripper navigation keeps you connected without looking like a spaceship dashboard. The retro-inspired switchgear has adjustable levers, which is a nice detail at this price point. And Royal Enfield nailed the color options. The Shotgun's palette is bolder and more contemporary than anything else they sell. The rider triangle puts you in a neutral, slightly forward position that works equally well in city traffic and on sweeping back roads. It's not a sport bike, but it's not a commuter either. It exists in that middle ground, where riding is just genuinely fun without being exhausting or demanding. If you're under 35 and walking into a Royal Enfield dealer for the first time, this is probably the bike that's going to catch your eye. And unlike a lot of bikes that look better than they ride, the Shotgun actually backs up the styling with substance. 5 bikes. 5 genuinely different reasons to ride. Royal Enfield's full lineup has 11 models right now, but these 5 are the ones that actually justify swiping your card. Everything else is either a duplicate with different bodywork, a legacy model coasting on nostalgia, or a niche pick that only makes sense if you already know you want it. Start with these 5. Test ride the one that matches your riding life, not the one that looks best on Instagram. That's how you buy a motorcycle you'll actually keep.